where am I? No, this better not be happening. I better not be in New Jersey. Maybe this is something to do with the whole Freddy Fazbear thing. I mean, I know I was pretty negative about FNAF 2, but I thought he could handle criticism. Well, at least I have some form of entertainment. Over there is a DVD copy of Dumb Money and PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale for the PlayStation 3. I gotta get out of here! You might be wondering, Lag Games, why don't you check the door? But why would I do that? The door is probably locked anyway. I guess that means I have to play. Well, at least it's not Dumb Money.
Super Smash Bros. Is one of the biggest fighting games of all time. These games are crossovers between gaming icons like Nintendo characters such as Mario, Pikachu, and Link, as well as third-party characters like Sonic, Cloud, and Steve. Super Smash Bros. Is always a massive release, with each entry expanding on the last. Super Smash Bros. For the Nintendo 64 was the first game in the franchise and introduced the gameplay that would become standard in most platform fighters today. Instead of a typical health bar like fighting games of the time, Smash used a percentage system for health, where every time you got hit, your percentage went up, which meant you got knocked farther away, and if you get knocked all the way off stage, you die. This was a revolutionary system and really helped define what platform fighters were and how they were different from traditional fighting games. This game also had items which made Smash not just a fighting game, but a party game as well, helping it appeal to a more casual audience than most traditional fighters. This helped it become a massive success on the console, with it becoming the 5th best-selling game on the Nintendo 64. Then there was Super Smash Bros. Melee, a complete expansion of the original game. Double the character roster, a whole bunch of single-player modes, giving every character a new move in the form of side special, and even collectibles in the form of trophies, which meant that characters from Nintendo history got represented outside of a fighter or a stage. Which really makes you ask, where's Merville, Nintendo? This game ended up becoming the #1 best-selling GameCube game of all time, and it has become the inspiration for so many platform fighters today. Super Smash Bros. Brawl was a huge deal. There were third-party characters for the first time in the form of Sonic and Snake, a full story mode with a whole bunch of cutscenes, even more single-player options, and so much more. This game was massive, and it ended up becoming the 8th best-selling Wii game of all time. After that, there was Super Smash Bros. For 3DS and Wii U, adding so many new characters, including DLC, which was a first for the franchise, custom moves, new game modes, faster gameplay than Smash Bros. Brawl, and even the ability to play Smash Bros. Portably for the first time. Then there was Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. The amount of hours I've put into this game is pretty concerning. This game was the biggest Smash Bros. Game yet. 82 characters, with every character from previous Smash games returning, over 100 stages, spirits, and so many more single-player and multiplayer modes. And also, the reason I haven't touched this in over 5 years. This franchise was wildly popular, and when companies see something that popular, they don't see a well-designed fighting game. All they see is money. And so, many companies tried to make the next Smash Bros. And although some companies succeeded, especially indie developers with games like Rivals of Aether, Framemakers, and Slap City, other companies just haven't been able to make a game as good as Smash Bros. One of those companies was Sony. I mean, they'd already attempted a crossover with the iconic PlayStation Move Heroes. Surprisingly, people weren't too interested in buying the PlayStation Move. Ever, but definitely not to play a game where Ratchet looks weird. But maybe another PlayStation crossover could work, preferably one that isn't this. So what else can Sony do? Besides the obvious. Well, maybe they can just plagiarize from Nintendo, because who doesn't love a little bit of stealing? Just take the idea of a crossover platform fighter, but, make sure to add your own twist so it's not just a clone. I'm sure that'll turn out well.
I can't believe I'm saying this, but you should have just stolen.
PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale was meant to be Sony's competitor to Super Smash Bros., and it all started development back in 2009. It was originally going to be made by Naughty Dog, but unfortunately they were still working on The Last of Us. So, Naughty Dog had an important decision to make. Work on one of the best games of the 21st century, or The Last of Us. Naughty Dog decided against it to continue working on The Last of Us.
They're gonna regret that decision. One day.
Then, when that plan fell through, Sony chose the second best option. Superbot Entertainment.
They've finally done it. They found the perfect studio.
The game originally went under the name Title Fight, which in my opinion is a way better name than what we actually got.
That's just too many words!
The game was officially announced in April 2012 and was meant to release in October, but it got pushed back so they could polish the game.
Good, because I don't want to live in a world where this game is any worse. Okay, enough stalling. Time to actually play PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale. Or I could check out the bonus content on the disc. The reviewers are right. This game sucks. Okay. We'll play the actual game now. Or I could check out the digital manual.
The digital manual comes with this game, and it's a neat thing that you'll look at once and then never again. It just tells you how to play the game and has descriptions of the characters. I would have vastly preferred a paper manual to this because I absolutely hate trees.
Okay, enough stalling. Time to actually play PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale. I'm a PlayStation fan. I'm gonna love this game.
PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale.
I think I'm an Xbox guy now.
This game starts with the worst combination of the color blue I've ever seen, and then transitions into a cinematic showing some PlayStation All-Stars in a Battle Royale. Then the title screen appears, showing the game's title. I know I talked about it a little bit before, but this title isn't great. All-Stars and Battle Royale just seem like two different subtitles, not the game's legal name. Maybe they could have just called it PlayStation All-Stars, but even then the name seems too generic to be instantly seen as a fighting game. I think Title Fight would have been a better name, since even though it doesn't have PlayStation in the title, it is still a decent name for a crossover fighting game. This game is wildly different from Smash Bros, both gameplay-wise and with the way it controls. The game has 3 different attack buttons with different attack for each direction. There is some consistency, but not all of the moves feel like they belong together as part of a moveset. Grabs also don't get a button like in Smash and instead are controlled by the right analog stick. Why? You literally could have just mapped it to the top button. Why is there a top button? In Smash they use the D-pad for dodge because there isn't any really good use for it in that game. Sure, in PlayStation All-Stars you can control the game with the D-pad, but why would you want to do that? Also, there is a specific button for grabbing items, so why didn't they just combine that with the regular grabbing instead of only being useful when you have an item? And also, have you ever wanted to drop down from a platform? I know I have. Well, in this game you don't just press it down like every other video game ever made. You have to press down and then X. Why? Why does this game have so many design issues? Oh, right. This game started out with 20 characters in its base roster and got 4 more through DLC. This is actually a pretty decent size for a first fighting game. We get some true PlayStation All-Stars like Kratos, Parappa the Rappa, Ratchet and Clank, Nathan Drake, Sackboy, and even Fat Princess.
Only the greatest PlayStation All-Stars.
This character roster is something I've seen get a lot of hate, and yeah, it's not great, but it's also not that bad. It does have a lot of PS3 characters that I feel are just there because they were recent. Evil Cole, McGrath, Fat Princess, and Noriko are characters that should have maybe been swapped out for someone from the PS2 or especially the PS1. Even characters like Raiden and Dante from the DMC reboot seem a bit strange when they could have easily been replaced with characters like Snake and the original Devil May Cry Dante. Especially Dante, considering how iconic that original Devil May Cry Dante design is. However, both of these choices were pushed by Capcom and Konami to be included over the older reps, so it's not really Superbot's fault. This, however, is. The PS2 gets some good representation with almost all of their iconic franchises coming over. I said almost. PS1 representation is where things get dicey. No Crash, no Spyro, no Cloud, no Abe, and not even Lara Croft. The thing is, these characters were all considered but scrapped at some point for a variety of reasons. I still think the PS1 has some good choices, despite it being pretty lackluster. I mean, we still have characters like Parappa, Sweet Tooth, Heihachi, Sir Daniel, and Spike here, which are all great choices. But who would I want to add? Well, let me tell you. Okay, I'll give you Lag Game's official top 3 characters I actually think should have been added, ignoring scrap fighters. Number 1, a Resident Evil character like Claire Redfield, Leon Kennedy, or even someone like Nemesis would be a really cool addition considering how closely tied Resident Evil is to PlayStation. Wander from Shadow of the Colossus would be cool to see considering how widely praised that game is, and it's also a PlayStation exclusive. Coach from Loco Roco. How would he work? I don't know, but what I do know is that I think this game needs more PSP representation. Just not too much. But there are still so many other characters that could have been added, which just shows how cool of an idea a PlayStation crossover is if they didn't mess it up. Each character has multiple alternate costumes, which you can unlock, which is something that Smash has been lacking for a while until Ultimate, but even then in Ultimate, they just scratched the surface. Like, how do you look at this and not include it as an alternate costume? I don't know how this game got good reviews. Each alt also has different colors you can pick from, but it's not like Smash where you can see what the colors are on the character. Instead, it just shows you a circle with some colors inside it, which doesn't give you a great idea on how the colors will actually look on the character. What does purple and white Parappa look like? Hopefully not that. The alts also don't appear in the HUD when you're in-game, which is weird considering you have the artwork right there. Just put it in the HUD already!
Do it. I'll wait.
The character art in this game as a whole is weird. They have renders of these characters that are actually decent, but they don't use them on the CSS. Instead, they use worse renders. It's confusing, because it's like, guys, you have this good render of Cat, why don't you just use it? Some of these renders are decent, but they all look lifeless in comparison to the renders that were used on the box art. But you might be wondering, well, lag games, how does the game work? And I'm glad you asked. In this game, you build up an AP meter by either hitting your opponents or collecting AP orbs. There are 3 levels of supers you can get to, all depending on how many orbs you collect or how many times you hit your opponent. Level 1 super is usually weak, but the level 2 and 3 super moves are powerful and more likely to actually hit your opponent. This is your only way that you can kill your opponent, meaning that you're better off not even trying with your level 1 super, and instead you should just wait for your level 2 or 3 super. Because if you miss, you now have to spend more time slowly collecting AP orbs, while your opponent has an easy time getting their level 2 or 3 specials. Or they'll just hit you with their level 1 special anyway. This focus on your AP meter to get kills makes the game less fun, since you either have to use your level 1 super and hope you don't miss, and then if you do miss, hope your opponent doesn't hit you with their super they've built up, or instead wait even longer to get your level 2 and 3 specials. All the level 3 specials are guaranteed to hit anyway, since they usually last so long and can hit your opponent multiple times. You can also lose AP orbs with items, grabs, or certain moves, which make the grind for AP orbs even longer. This whole system makes it so that hitting combos or powerful moves don't even feel that fun to pull off, since you can't actually kill your opponent with them or deal any damage. They're just a way to get orbs faster. And on top of that, supers aren't really balanced well. Like, Heihachi's level 2 super is broken. Kumo will always get you more than once, even if you're trying to avoid it. But then Cats can easily be dodged and barely even hits once against the hardest computer. This game feels way harder to explain than Smash, which isn't good when one of the main appeals of Smash is how it's both a fighting game and an easily accessible party game. But have you ever tried bringing this game to a party? I know I have. Smash is simple. The higher the percentage, the higher you get launched. But imagine trying to explain this game to someone who's never played it before.
Okay, so basically, you have the AP meter, and then you build up the AP meter, and...
Sir, this is a Wendy's?
This game is not fun to play.
Really?
The first problem with this game is its movement. Platform fighters are known for their freedom of movement that you don't see in traditional fighters. I mean, they're a combination between platformer and fighting game, so it makes sense that one of the most important aspects of a platformer is also an important element in platform fighters. The run feels about the speed of a walk in a game like Super Smash Bros. Melee, and it makes just even moving around the stage feels sluggish, which isn't something you want in most games, especially not in a platform fighter. The movesets in this game are okay overall, but not as good as most other platform fighters, but then again, that could also be because this game isn't as fun to play compared to most other platform fighters. There are not only 3 attack buttons with 4 moves each, but then there are also 4 aerials for each of the 3 attack buttons that are often different from the moves on the ground. This means there's 24 moves per character, which compared to Smash Bros. Average of 17 moves per character is a lot more to remember. With there being 3 attack buttons with more moves than Smash, it makes it harder to remember all of them. This just meant that whenever I was playing a certain character, I would just mash the moves I knew were good and ignored most of the other moves. I also find it weird that they put movement options like Dante's air dash or Heihachi's crouch dash into a move, instead of making them their own unique mechanic for the character. This game feels more like the movesets aren't as cohesive as other platform fighters, where it feels like every move works well with one another. Sure, the moves combo together, but that doesn't make a moveset fun on its own if the moveset isn't fun to use. A lot of the moves in this game just don't feel that fun to use, which is why fights don't feel as fun as they should be. Maybe it's because there's just such a large variety of moves that don't all work as well. There are a lot of projectiles, some of which are fun, but a lot of them aren't. Some moves are also only useful in one very specific scenario, which makes them not feel like a good inclusion if they have such a specific use case. Even some special moves suffer from this problem, like Sir Daniel's level 1 special, which hits diagonally up, which isn't often going to hit a lot of players, especially in a free-for-all. Some moves are just guns that aren't all that enjoyable to use and aren't at all interesting, especially when someone has multiple gun attacks like Nathan Drake or Radek. There are some moves in this game that I think are pretty cool, but they just feel too clunky or don't feel like they're being utilized fully because of how they function, or just because of how this game works, since hitting moves doesn't feel as satisfying since you can't actually kill with them. Combos in this game are a bit confusing. I mean, they exist, but they don't make much sense. Like, who at the development team looked at this move and said,
That right there is a combo starter if I've ever seen one.
they hadn't? In Smash, it's like, okay, this move that sends up combos into an up aerial, makes sense. Then, in PlayStation All-Stars, they went, yeah, okay, what if this projectile comboed into another projectile? The characters in this game mostly just feel okay to play. In a game like Smash Ultimate, I enjoy playing almost all of the fighters on the roster, and even the ones I don't enjoy playing as much, I still enjoy their moveset enough to where they're at least a bit fun to play. Most of the characters in PlayStation All-Stars fall into the category of not being fun to play as, but that's probably less of a character design issue and more of a game not being fun to play issue. I do enjoy some of the characters here, but most of the time when I play anyone else is because I haven't played them in a while, and then when I end up playing them, I just remember why I haven't.
Oh right, they're bad.
PlayStation All-Stars has a versus mode like every other fighting game, where you can play against either a CPU if you're alone, or against other real people if anyone would be willing to play this. But trust me, I've tried so many times to play this game with other people.
Hey, do you want to play PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale? How'd you get into my house?
Versus mode is how we introduce ourselves to the stages in this game, and their special feature. Every single stage in this game is a crossover between two different franchises. For example, you could just be having fun playing on a Little Big Planet stage, and then all of a sudden, you get jump scared. Sometimes the stage will change drastically with new hazards, or sometimes just background changes, but it's still a cool addition that helps represent franchises like Hotshot Golf and Wipeout, who would have never gotten a fighter. However, my main problem with the stages is that they're just too big. Almost all of these stages are basically flat land with some platforms, which could work if they weren't as big. Sure, they have their gimmicks to make them stand out, but it doesn't make them fun, and in some cases it makes them more annoying. With the speed of this game, I think it would have helped if the stages were a bit smaller, making it more likely for you to try and approach your opponent more. Though, on the positive side, you can turn stage hazards off, which wasn't a thing in Smash until Smash Ultimate, which at least gives this game 1 point, but I'm being generous here. Though, depending on the stage I was playing on, there were some weird lag spikes, even in 1v1s, which is a bit concerning. And the weird thing is, I got most of my lag spikes on Rival Arena, you know, the stage with no hazards. Items are also in this game. I mean, every platform fighter needs it. All of these items either give you AP orbs or let you steal other players' AP orbs. There's many iconic PlayStation items like fish, bees, and even rocket launchers. Overall, the items are just alright. I like the fish and the rocket launcher, but the other ones are pretty forgettable.
Wow, I've sure had a lot of negative things to say about this game, but to be fair, compared to Dumb Money, this game isn't that bad.
PlayStation All-Stars also has a load of single-player options. This game starts with a tutorial and has many other tutorials, but I'm a real gamer. I don't need a tutorial to tell me how to play. The game also has combat trials. Basically, it's just a challenge mode with fun challenges like hit your opponent with a level 1 super, hit your opponent with a level 2 super, hit your opponent with a level 3 super. Some of these are character-specific, but they aren't all that fun. Practice mode. Practice with an AI or friend.
Do you want to practice PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale? Get out of my house!
The main single-player mode in PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale is the story mode. This mode's actually pretty neat. It's basically an arcade mode, but with each character having their own little story and a rival battle between them and another character, with a cool cutscene at the start, which is actually pretty cool. Here's my favorite story from story mode. Nathan Drake goes out to look for treasure, so he beats up a raccoon and then learns the real treasure were the friends he made along the way. Yeah, like I said, story mode is actually pretty cool, and it gets even cooler at the end when you fight Polygon Man, who was PlayStation's original mascot before being scrapped.
How could they?
Him being in this game is actually a really cool inclusion. His boss fight, on the other hand, is just okay. He summons other fighters and can turn it into stage hazards, but luckily not Buzz. Once you defeat the polygon versions of other fighters, you get to hit him a few times and eventually defeat him. Story mode is probably the best mode in the game. It makes this game feel like an actual crossover, and it's so cool to see interactions between these characters that you would have never seen elsewhere. This game also has a bunch of customization options for each character. Every character has multiple different taunts, intros, and outros, which you can get by leveling up your character. Oh, silly me. I forgot to mention that every time you play a character, they actually level up, which is great because having a high level character is an amazing thing to brag about. Leveling up is basically useless unless you want to unlock more customization options. Oh, and speaking of customization, we were just getting started. You can also customize your profile that appears during offline and online games. They actually have a lot of options for profile pictures and banners, but you have to unlock them by playing the game, so the options are kinda limited since who's crazy enough to get Cat to level 82?
I retract that statement.
The game also allows you to choose a title for you while you're playing, which I presume is a reference to other PlayStation games, but some of these choices are just strange. Like, who wants to be known as the Toe Stomper?
Oh, me!
The problem is to unlock these, you need to play online, which means you can't platinum PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale anymore, since you need to be online to get certain achievements.
Usually I wouldn't be too upset about this, but I just really wanted to be known as the Toe Stomper.
You also have minions who...
No! I'm not letting them get away with this. Do you really think I was just gonna go and just accept minions like they're a normal part of our society? This game has a lot to complain about, but this is easily the worst part yet.
Minions are creatures that shouldn't exist in this world. They are chibi versions of PlayStation characters that didn't make it into the game as a fighter. They didn't deserve this. And if I'm being completely honest, they look like characters from Shrek's Super Party on the GameCube.
That is the meanest thing I've ever said.
Most of these things are unlocked through leveling up certain characters, like the other customization options, but that makes me want to play them less, not more. Why would I get to level 8 as Nikiro to unlock a minion when I could just not do that and actually be happy about life? And you know what the developers decided to do as some sort of joke? They decided to make more than half of these minions need to be purchased as DLC so they can prank people into buying these things.
Hey guys, come look at this. Some fool just paid for minions.
That's just cruel. Like, how do you go from this to this and think that's acceptable to charge money for? These things aren't cute. They live in my nightmares. These designs only sort of work if they're already chibi or an animal design, and even then they don't look good. If I went through every bad design, I'd be here all day, but I think you get the idea. I think I just need to chill out for a minute and talk about something else. This game also has an extra menu which has a whole lot of fun things to do, like look at the credits and read the character bios, which are fun, but personally, I've always been a EULA guy myself. I could just spend hours reading it and never get bored. This game also got DLC with 4 characters, 2 stages, multiple costumes, and more being added. Isaac Clarke from Dead Space got added, which despite not being a PlayStation exclusive character, is still a cool one to see, since I don't imagine him ever getting into Smash. Zeus from God of War got added, which is an odd choice. It's weird that this is the second fighter from God of War when they could have gotten another character from another PlayStation franchise, but hey, this means that God of War is now tied with Infamous for most characters represented in the game. Emmett Grave from Starhawk, aka who? From what? Emmett Graves is another odd choice. He just feels like he's there because Starhawk was out around the same time as this game. 2 of these fighters so far I don't really think deserved a spot, and should have probably been replaced by actual PlayStation All-Stars so they can fight in this Battle Royale. But there's one more character, one so important to PlayStation that it couldn't be replaced. That's right, I'm talking about Elf from Elf's US Geography, the only character on the roster that can name all 50 US states. Wait, this isn't right. It's someone else. Kat and Dusty from Gravity Rush were the first DLC fighters added to the game, and they deserve this. Gravity Rush 1 and 2 are amazing games, and they're some of the few games I've actually beaten, which means Gravity Rush and FNAF 2 have something in common. Think about that. They're just such fun games that play around with the idea of gravity well while also having this cool open world to explore, and also a confusing story, which means Gravity Rush and FNAF 2 have something else in common. Think about that. So take a character from a great game and put them in a bad game, and what do you get? A character that's actually fun to play. Yeah, Cat's probably my favorite character in this game, but I might be a little biased. They have good combos, good supers, some fun moves, and hey look, Cat even has Captain Falcon Knee. I always love showing this to people.
Hey look, Cat is Captain Falcon Knee.
Get out of here, your house is on fire! You know, maybe this game isn't so bad, which is what I would be saying if they didn't give Gravity Rush more minions.
Why?
These minions look so bad. I mean, it's cool to see Gravity Rush getting representation, but this just isn't right. These all made it into the final game, but you know what didn't? This cool Gravity Rush stage taking place in Venda Center, which is one of the 4 areas in the first Gravity Rush. And it was going to be a crossover between Gravity Rush and Journey, and what did we get instead?
The source of my nightmares.
Now let's talk about some of the extra things I haven't mentioned yet. This game was released on 2 systems, the PlayStation 3 and the PlayStation Vita, which means you could play this game on the go, but why would you? It's actually quite impressive that they ported a PS3 game onto the PS Vita, with the only major changes being to the graphics, which makes sense considering the PS Vita is less powerful. But it's still impressive to see a PS3 game on anything but a PS3, which makes me really want PlayStation All-Stars on the Atari Lynx.
Okay, Sony, you know what to do.
Although I don't own a PS Vita, I still don't think I would want to play this game on the go. I don't want to play this game in my own house. Why would I want to play it at a Home Depot? No way, are you playing PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale for the PlayStation Vita? There was some connection between the 2 versions. You could get extra unlockable content by connecting the PS3 and PS Vita versions together, and any DLC you bought on one console could be redeemed on the other console if you use the same account. Neat. But I'm still not going to buy the PS Vita version. I'll wait for the Atari Lynx port. The final thing I need to mention is how PlayStation All-Stars got a spin-off exclusively on smartphones only in Europe, called PlayStation All-Stars Island, which was sponsored by Coke Zero, who made PlayStation All-Stars pop cans. This game is just for infinite runner games, where you collect Coke items and occasionally you'd have to scan QR codes on the PlayStation All-Star pop cans to get more content. That's great. I love buying products. That's my favorite. 4 characters and franchises were represented in this game. Nathan Drake from Uncharted, Cole McGrath from Infamous, Sackboy from Little Big Planet, and even Cat from Gravity Rush.
Sorry guys, I'm going to Europe.
Unfortunately, this game's been taken off the App Store.
Dang it. So that was PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale, and this game was pretty bad. I know. I'm surprised too.
The game is slow and clunky. The gameplay feels like it could have been better. The AP meter feels like it shouldn't be the main focus of the game, because it makes hits not feel as impactful, and makes missing an AP special put you in a big disadvantage. The art style is good in some ways and bland in others. There's some cool crossover elements, which is great to see, but then I remember that minions exist.
And the worst part is, the door's been open this whole time. So you're saying I've played PlayStation All-Stars for 2 whole weeks without any food or water? Shouldn't I be
Hold on, I can't die yet. I still have to beat FNAF 3.